Fine, I'll start watching and researching it. Alright then, so this index is a request from a long time and persistent viewer, and I finally got around to watching SDF Macross. You see, I didn't want to write an episode with no concept beyond the comparatively context-light nature of Wikia articles. So after putting aside some time every week and actually quite enjoying it, here we go. The Zentradi from SDF Macross, not Robotech. By 2009, humans had reverse-engineered crashed alien tech in the form of the SDF Macross over the course of 10 years. This led to a burst in development as they passed through the Unification Wars, emerging as a single global power with a dedicated space program. On the day of the Macross's launch, alien life was encountered. The Zentradi Legion, a military of devoted warriors who claim to have no culture. But in truth, war is their culture. The universe overflows with conflict, and it is in battle that one finds life. The Zentradi are a race of giants. When compared to humans, they stand at around 7 to 9 times the height, ranging from 8 meters to around 16, though most fit into the 10 to 11 meter range. Often those of higher rank are greater in stature, and many possess augmentations in the form of cybernetics. They have a variety of skin tones from pale pinks to greens, and a very diverse range of hair colour, green, blue, browns, greys. Despite these differences, their genetic makeup is near identical to humans. The Zentradi are entirely militant. There is no civilian life outside of their army and naval structure, and no efforts dedicated to entertainment or recreation. Time not on duty is spent sleeping, eating, or preparing for their next assignment. This is enforced by a series of laws and rules inherited from the days of their creation. I say creation, as the Zentradi were created through cloning and genetic modification by the proto-culture Stellar Republic, some of the earliest spacefaring life in the galaxy. There are male and female variants between the species, the MacLeod. However, the same rules that prohibit culture also segregate the genders. This serves a twofold purpose. The proto-culture bred them to be their military wing, but the Zentradi have the same emotional range as humans, though their purpose in life has created a tendency towards combat lust or stoicism. By keeping the species segregated, the proto-culture removes the possibility of love and emotional attachment that can overwhelm any regimented lifestyle. It also prevents the possibility of copulation and reproduction outside of proto-culture controlled facilities. What's more, they were forbidden to involve themselves in the cultural activities of other species, especially those that were also created by the proto-culture. The race of me-clones, for example, known as humanity. In fact, their orders were so prominent that they had even degenerated into legends and myths by the time they encountered Earth, some 500,000 years after their creation. They too were trained to ignore skills not centred on warfare, with even equipment maintenance not being a critical skill, as it kept soldiers dependent on the regulated supply of arms from factories that no doubt would originally have been under the thumb of their masters. This system of control produced a dedicated fighting force, but as mentioned, they retained the same emotional spectrum as mankind, and therefore a range of issues would arise among their own ranks. Without a dedicated recreational activity of any kind, the Zentradi began to find their diversion in training and combat. This would lead to individuals testing the chain of command frequently in order to take action that they wanted, either because it led to an adrenaline high or simply because it was fun. I doubt they even recognised this fault within their own society, however, as they were prohibited from engaging in other cultures, leaving them without comparison. As an artificial race, they are able to replenish their ranks rather quickly, so this, combined with the tendency to toy with their opponents for their own amusement, led to situations where commanders and soldiers thought nothing about throwing away their own lives to force an enemy's hand, deduce a foe's stratagem. Expending a great deal of resources to attain relatively little intel or results seem counterintuitive to our understanding of combat, where the goal is to win. This is true for the Zentradi too, but another motivator, likely subconscious and bound to their very way of fighting, was to enjoy themselves. Even vast amounts of friendly fire were tolerated if it was justified, ergo, it got results. though it was penalised. Again, they would never know any different, as recreation was a cultural activity and culture was banned. Every Zentradi was under the purview of the Supreme Commander, the enforcer of Zentradi law, the deciding factor in the direction of the military, and the only one privy to the entire scope of Zentradi history and legend. In 2009, this was Bodil Zar. If his knowledge base was leaked, those who were not authorised to know were executed. Below this were the commanders of the individual main fleets, of which there were at least 118, and the main Bodil fleet, the armoured divisions, and so on. A lot of these fleets, when not on campaign, were orbiting their home bases, fortress stations of immense size, created from hollowed out asteroids. Each branch fleet was led by a flagship, and those in the top 3 tiers of command were the only ones privy to an entire battle plan for compartmentalisation, numbering a total of around 2,000. The entire Zentradi fleet numbers in the millions. Zentradi officers wore green and blue tunics laced with gold trim or red coats styled in a similar fashion. Cloaks and high collars are common attire for decorated officers. The general soldiers were expected to wear armour while on duty. This heavy combat armour was green and purple, the dominant colours of the Zentradi Legion. This combat armour provided high levels of protection against enemy fire and environmental factors, but did little to amplify the strength of the wearer, suggesting it wasn't motorised. In ground combat, they relied on their Regault armoured frames. Among the many technologies of the Zentradi is the ability to fold space, creating a micro wormhole point where any matter surrounding the drive is pulled through into hyperspace and re-emerges into a new location. They had developed sensor technology on their ships, more so than the humans it seems, as their scanners could detect life signs and energy readings with far more clarity than the Macross. Upon encountering humanity, they considered us a threat, not because of our relatively modest fledgling starships like the Macross, but because of our embracing of cultures and the very nature of human society in any form. Civilian life is a concept foreign to them, and not because they wouldn't understand it, simply because they were raised not knowing any other way than their legions of war. In fact, when witnessing human activities, such as a beauty pageant, the all-male Zentradi find themselves unable to process the unfamiliar emotions of lust or desire, citing it as close to the anticipation of combat, the only reference point they have for fun. Similar emotions are stirred when they witnessed a kiss, even beginning to consider it a form of psychological warfare. Such distractions from their regimented life are considered near heresy, although there is no actual religion either, so maybe not heresy, but you get the picture. Artworks, religion, recreation, civilian life, customs and traditions are all labelled under the banner of culture, and the antithesis of a Zentradi's way of life. Exposure to these could lead to them questioning their very command structure. When Zentradi were compromised by exposure to human culture, the very fears of High Command came true, and the chain of command broke down as the Zentradi, who carried out an attack on the SDF Macross's civilian sector, began to question the morality of their actions, originally not understanding the nature of non-combatants, the idea being a foreign concept. This growing movement within the Zentradi built and travelled further up the chain of command until a mutinous ceasefire was demanded of their commanders, who relented, establishing a tentative dialogue with mankind. The response from High Command was to cauterise what they saw as a contamination and ordered the execution of the entire 118th Main Fleet. Thing is, the Zentradi do have a culture. Culture is a way of life formed by a society's beliefs and actions. It's inescapable. Honestly, their way of life is unsustainable, and I'm surprised it took even 500,000 years for them to encounter problems. Though with every deviation from their military life, like desertion, was punished with execution, so it's perhaps easier to see how it persevered. You could argue that it was only the shared ancestry of the Zentradi and humanity that opened them to the possibility of culture to begin with. Thanks for listening. The Index series will continue as normal with the voted episode later on, but as I said, this was a request for a long time and I've finally got round to do it. Thanks for watching. I've been Rick, and until next time, Goodbye.